Secondly, for type 1 diabetics with eating disorders, what I've termed as diabulimia, the condition needs to be properly recognised as a serious and complex mental health problem. And I don't think it is controversial for the Honourable Lady to refer to it being a mental health problem, because although it has, in all of the examples she gave, serious physical consequences, the springboard for it is often a mental health relationship with body image and so on. Thirdly, that those who seek treatment should receive the correct treatment with respect and compassion, and on the basis of a multidisciplinary approach. In the example I've given, there isn't enough expertise in one specialism to be able to satisfactorily deal with this problem. And I would add that such an approach requires an active promotion of an understanding of the problem by the department itself in order for the health professionals to catch on to what is actually happening. And I think there need to be probably some protocols in place so that when somebody does present themselves with that condition, the health professionals concerned should know what to do. Now, dwed, which works together with other bodies such as Diabetes UK, currently exists on an income, and they are the only people who are raising this problem, apart from me today in this debate, exists on an income in the last financial year of £9,000 a year, which isn't enough even to employ one full-time member of staff. And they operate on the basis of previous sufferers who are volunteers under the coordination of Jacqueline Allen, who I mentioned earlier. And I don't know whether it's more appropriate for foundations or for the government or somebody. I'm not talking about needing hundreds of thousands of pounds, although I'm sure they'd welcome that. But there needs to be some way found to support the one organisation that is raising and dealing and campaigning with this problem. Given the importance of this unique role, I do hope that the government can find some support, not just for dwed, but for the issue as it exists across the health service. And finally, just as it is vital that health professionals take a more multidisciplinary approach to this and other eating orders, I think it's equally important that the government itself takes a more joined-up approach. I could have made the same criticism of the previous government, and I do realise how difficult it is to get a joined-up approach to eating disorders and many other things. But certainly as regards medical cases, I do think there needs to be cooperation between different government departments, because I think there needs to be a stronger push on this whole issue of body image and how that's dealt with. And maybe that's not best dealt with by the Department of Health. But at the same time, there does need to be some of the health issues involved needs to be addressed. I will do, yes.
Giving way, but perhaps I can put an alternative view to him. In my experience, people don't really like being told by government what to do. And if we acknowledge that perhaps the media is one of the biggest perpetrators of pushing forward these images that we should all aspire to, don't we really need a good populist campaign to really educate the public that actually curves are great?
The Honourable Lady makes a very good point, and I think the idea of politicians waving our fingers and saying this is what you should do. For a couple of years in the previous government, I had the responsibility in the Home Office for drugs policy, and one of the things that I do know is middle-aged men, maybe I'm flattering myself there, middle-aged men like me are probably the worst people to go into the media and say, actually, you shouldn't be taking drugs. It needs a very a subtle and sophisticated approach to it. And I think one of the lessons from that, and it applies equally to this, is to provide information to young people so that they know the consequences of what they do. And I think one of the problems we're dealing with here is often they think it's an easy way to lose, there's an easy way to losing weight and getting to be the shape that you think you should be, or others think you should be. And so I think it has to be done very, smartly on the basis of real information about consequences, but it still has to be done. But the Honourable Lady anticipates the next point I was coming onto, and that is the responsibility people in different industries have. This relentless media hype about what the perfect body shape should be, and the irresponsible attitudes often displayed by the fashion industry and the entertainment industry needs to be highlighted, because it makes many young people, looking around the room, there might be one or two people who can remember what it was like to be a teenager, but well, I take that back. There are several people around the room who well remember what it's like to be a teenager. But one thing I'm sure, one experience we, probably all share, and every teenager in history has always shared, is that insecurity. You haven't developed into who you're going to be, and that insecurity about everything, including your appearance. I've long since, as is obvious, given up worrying about my appearance. But appearance and the way you present yourself to the world and what it is to be cool and all of those things. And a lot of that is dictated by what they read in magazines, what they see on cable channels, even what they see in, mainstream reality television shows. And I think, it's wholly unrealistic for those industries that do that to say, well, that's a matter for the government. They have got a responsibility. They have got a responsibility to provide role models to young people that are realistic, that are just like the rest of the world, that you don't have to be particularly look like that in order to be an acceptable, successful, attractive member of society. And I think, that responsibility is one that is not just for government, not just for politicians, it's for everybody who's in a position to influence how these things are presented to young people in particular, but to society in general. And I do hope, as a result of this debate, we can at least move that agenda along a little bit further.
Wheeler?
Thank you very much indeed. I do appreciate being called, particularly because I'm going to nip off to the second debate later on this afternoon, so if my honourable friend will forgive me. Thank you, Mrs Osborne. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship today. Can I begin by paying tribute to my honourable friend, the member for Romsey and Southampton North, firstly for securing this very important debate during Eating Disorders Awareness Week 2013. My honourable friend is respected by members across the whole House for her knowledge on this issue, and I'd like to thank her for the tireless way she is championing an issue which is, in my opinion, one of the most pressing, and indeed, if the medical profession's own statistics are to believe, one of the most rapidly growing health issues this nation faces. Indeed, male admissions are up by 68% in 10 years. I would also like to pay tribute to the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Body Image, which my honourable friend is chairman of, which exists to inform the media, the fashion industry and wider society of the complex issues arising from poor body image. Body image is, as reported by the First Step charity that works in my constituency in South Derbyshire, one of the most significant causes of disordered eating behaviour. It is heartening that such groups exist, and it is evidence that some small measure awareness